Some vital points were raised in the comments of my video about the moons of Jupiter. I'm going to answer some of them. And many of these questions open beautiful doors into a greater understanding of our universe. And some of them do that while testing my patience. Like this one. Pluto is a planet because planet is a word of mysticism that predates science. And a handful of technocrats don't get to take astrology's words and redefine them to make your own words. Planet is just a heavenly body orbiting the sun. Is a comet a planet? I'd say no, but when is a puddle a pond? It's up to you, not math. This is the difference between mystic words and scientific ones. Get this, I agree. I mean, not with the whole vibe, but words do mean what they mean to you. And as long as you're consistent, that's fine. If a planet is a thing going around a star to you, then Pluto's a planet. If a planet is a thing that's going around the star that has enough gravity to form it into a sphere, or as they say, hydrostatic equilibrium. Why do we say hydrostatic equilibrium? Haumea is why. This is why, because that's not a sphere, is it? It's at hydrostatic equilibrium, though, because its gravity has formed it into the shape that it would be given that it spins so dang fast. And so we have to say hydrostatic equilibrium instead of sphere. And I guess we would have to say that anyway, because even the Earth isn't really a sphere, because it spins a little bit, so it is a little bit wider in the middle. Because it's middle-aged. But it's so interesting that in here you say, is the comet a planet? I would say no. So you're saying there that, it isn't clear. And what we want when we're trying to clearly describe the universe is specificity. But that's just for when scientists are using the words. We can call things different things, and we do all the time. We don't really do this with planets, but we still use the word fish, even though there isn't a phylogenetic category of fish. We still call a palm tree a tree, even though it's not taxonomically very related to an oak tree. We get to use words however we want to use them. You're right. I'm not on board with the mysticism stuff. I don't think this is a conversation about math and science versus religion and spirituality. It's just a conversation about having useful words and using them when they are useful. Tree is a useful word to have, even if it doesn't have a specific meaning in evolutionary biology. We agree. How dare you, Mr. Green? Pluto had no quarrel with the moons of Jupiter, and yet you pit them against each other. Cannot both sets of celestial bodies be enjoyed for shame? This is the tone I'm looking for, by the way. But my point, and I swear I said this so many times, is not that Pluto doesn't deserve attention. It's that it got a lot of attention, and it gets way more attention than the moons of Jupiter. I don't want people to pay less attention to Pluto. I want people to pay more attention to my boys. I thought I made that clear. If I didn't, I'm making it clear now. Pluto's great, but nobody thinks about Callisto, and that is BS. BS. It's BS. Hey, by the way, we're about to order these, so you should order it now if you want to get one of these. We might do more of them in the future. We might not. They have sold really well. Thank you to everybody who got one. They kick ass. I'm so happy. Thank you to Casey for designing it. Again, this is Jupiter in the middle with an image of Jupiter with the 4 Galilean moons. And then we got Io here. We got Europa here. We got Ganymede here. And we got Callisto here with all the craters. And you can wear your love for the Galilean moons on your torso as well. There's a link right under this video. A lot of people were like, why is this video about Pluto, but it's not about Pluto? And they got mad at me about that. They said that it's clickbait. First of all, I don't care. If you come into my video thinking you're gonna get one thing and you get a different educational message, I don't know. But I thought it was pretty clear that the conversation we've been having about Pluto is that it's been disrespected somehow by being demoted to not being a planet anymore. And you're wrong about that. But you're not wrong about that because it should be a planet. You're wrong about that because there's a bunch of stuff in the solar system that's just as good that you're not paying attention to. That was the point of the video. That's the frame. That's the title. I think that's a good topic and title and frame for a video. I'm a YouTuber. I know how to do my job. Get off of my lawn. Hank, you should talk about Haumea. Why is it shaped like that? I already did that in this video. Amazing. Haumea is weird. It's 1,300 miles long. It's 700 miles high. That's strange. And the reason why is that it's spinning super fast. So it gets, the poles get squished in and everything else gets stretched out. It's they've got a 4-hour day. So it's just woo, 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 woo. I think Haumea is the fastest day of any planetary body. Jupiter's 10 hours. So that's pretty fast, especially because it's so big. You might sometimes think to yourself, why is Jupiter so stormy? Imagine a giant planet that's moving that fast. So there's 2 ways Jupiter's extra fast. One is that it's bigger. If you had the same day as Earth, it would be traveling much faster because you have to go through more space. So the pole is still moving not at all. And then a little bit down, it's moving a little faster. And then the top speed is at the equator. This is where the Coriolis effect exists. And so the difference between that 0 and that speed is both the speed that the planet is going, so it has a faster day than Earth, and it's a much bigger planet, and so it has to travel more. And so you have a very massive Coriolis force on Jupiter, which kicks ass. But that's not why you asked. Now, I actually don't know why Haumea isn't just a pancake. Why is it a football shape? And I have to figure that out now. Okay, I did a little research. I think what I'm understanding is that it's spinning so fast that it doesn't just all bulge out to the side, that it started to like yank itself apart a little bit. So it became a football shape. So I guess think of it like a water balloon, like pizza dough, you're gonna throw that, it's gonna flatten out. A water balloon, throw that, and it's gonna do two things. It's gonna flatten a little bit, but it's also gonna like lobe out. It's gonna stretch, and then it's gonna be like woo woo like this. That's wild. So I think that's what's going on. Physics, come at me, bro. 7 planets in the solar system? Yeah, no, I don't know why I said that. I guess I wasn't counting Earth, maybe. I don't know. I got nothing. Nothing takes me out of a video more than I don't know how to pronounce that. Like, if you don't care enough to look it up, why should I care enough to watch the video? Good point. I don't know. I hope that you didn't stop watching the video. If it took you out of it, that's a learning for me. But there is a certain amount of the thing we're doing here, trying to talk about science in a way that is like accessible and open and allows for people to not know things. So sometimes I like to model not knowing things, like I just did with Haumea. But maybe what I should do in those situations is I should be like, I don't know. I'm modeling that I don't know. And then I also model me figuring it out. I don't actually know what thing I didn't know how to pronounce in that video. But also like, there's just a certain amount of like, I'm just gotta be me. And like, sometimes I'm gonna look up the pronunciation and sometimes I'm gonna be like, I don't wanna do that. And if you want like perfectly crafted science communication with pronunciation guides, all of SciShow is right there. Like that's what we do. At SciShow, everything that I might not be able to pronounce has a little guide. And then also the scriptwriter or the editor puts a link so you can click and listen to someone saying the word. And that's amazing. And that's why whole teams kick ass. And that's what they're doing. And this is just me and Milo. And that's different. And I am very happy to be a part of teams of varying sizes. How does Europa have salt? You didn't explain that. Sorry, I mean, how do you know Europa has salt? Yeah, I didn't explain that. But spectroscopy. So sunlight. We know what sunlight looks like. It looks the same everywhere. It is emitting a spectrum of light that's not uniform throughout all of the different wavelengths. It has a specific look to it. And it looks like this. This is the spectrum of sunlight. But when sunlight hits something and then reflects back, some of that can get absorbed and some of it gets reflected. You can actually see what's getting absorbed, like which wavelengths are getting absorbed. And that can actually, like we're talking about the chemical bonds are actually like doing stuff to absorb those photons. And so you can tell with like a lot of precision exactly what molecules are on something if it's relatively simple and homogeneous. So the way that sunlight is absorbed by the surface of Europa, we can tell that there is sodium chloride on the surface of Europa. That's an indication that the warm water of the interior of Europa is interacting with something solid in some way. How do we know when anything formed? Especially when we never have been there. We humans make some pretty wild assumptions based on little to no evidence. I love the first half of your question. But it is wild to me that you think that this is an assumption, that you think we looked at the surface of an object and we were like, that seems like it's old. I can tell because it just like feels old. You know, you look at it and it's like old. Looks like an old man's face. It's a moon with an old man face. That's gotta be pretty old. I'm sorry, I'm not mocking you, but I am frustrated. You're like, first of all, Google's free. And so hit it. Try and figure out the answer to that question on your own, because you could say the same thing about literally any piece of scientific knowledge. Like, how do we know how far away the moon is? That's just an assumption that we made. No, we have like science and math that went into figuring out how far away the moon is. And then when we wanted to go to it, we went to it and it was where we thought it was before we got there. We didn't have to go to the moon to know how far away it was. We knew exactly where it was. That's how we sent spacecraft to the moon without missing. We know exactly how far away all of the planets are because of math and science. But how do we know how old the surface of Callisto is a great question. And one of the big ways we know this is because we've been to the moon. So we went to the moon and the rocks there are very old because it doesn't have plate tectonics constantly resurfacing the moon. And we can actually date those rocks. We can see how long since they first solidified with like radiometric dating. And we can look at the different impacts that have happened on the moon over the billions of years of the lifetime of the solar system. And then especially on the opposite side of the moon, the one that doesn't face us, there's way more craters. And we can see when different periods of bombardment happened. So there were different moments in the history of the solar system where there were spikes in the number of objects being thrown around and hitting Earth and Mars and Venus and the moon and the moons of Jupiter. And on Callisto, we can see very clearly the number of craters that are on the surface of that planet. And we can see that it's very high. It's a very high density of craters. And these bombardment events basically were when small objects got tossed around, and they went everywhere when they got tossed around. They hit the moon, they hit Earth, they hit moons of Jupiter, they hit Mars, and we can see that Callisto has a record of all of the bombardment events all on top of each other, including like the earliest bombardment event, and that helps us date how long ago the surface of Callisto formed, and that it has not been resurfaced since then. And in general, any object that has just a ton of craters on it, that's going to be an old object in the history of the solar system. Like the opposite side of the moon, which is about as old as the surface of Callisto, but the close side of the moon has been resurfaced by lava flows, which create those dark patches that we see up in the sky. We can see lava flows on the moon with our eyes. Does that mean that Ganymede is the only body in the Jupiter system where people could survive Jupiter's radiation on the surface without additional shielding? Look, I wouldn't want to live on any of them. But both Ganymede and Callisto have survivable amounts of radiation. Ganymede because it has the magnetic field that provides some protection, though not all of it. You're still getting way more radiation than you get on Earth. And Callisto because it's actually far enough away. It's not like in the thick of the magnetosphere of Jupiter, which is the problem. But no matter what, I'm going to want you to bury me a little bit when I'm on one of these planets. And I say planets. I do, because just like our first commenter said, what is it? What is it to you? And to me, it doesn't even really have to go around a star. It could just has to be a world, you know? And these are worlds. Maybe we should stick with that. Maybe we should stick with worlds. No mention of Titan? I mean, it was a video about the moons of Jupiter. I don't know what to say. That's a Saturn moon. It's very big and good. And we'll do a Saturn moon video at some point. And in that one, we'll talk about Titan. Look, I said there were 7 planets in that video, so I'm not ragging on you for thinking Titan is a moon of Jupiter. Wait, the solar system is a name and not a category? There's no solar system of WASP 107b? It's the WASP 107 system? Yeah, it is the WASP 107 system. There is a word that is inclusive of all of these systems. It's called a planetary system. So the solar system is a planetary system, but it is our specific planetary system named after Sol, our star. So it is the solar system, the system of Sol. And the planetary system of WASP 107b is the WASP 107 system, just as you say. There are, however, some star systems that don't have planets, and those then aren't planetary systems, they are stellar systems. So there's stars that are orbiting other stars, and then stars that are alone and don't have any planets around them, and we think that there are some of these, though they're not, doesn't seem like they're particularly common. Those are just stars. They're not systems. And the wild thing is, we don't have any confirmed lone stars. As far as I know, what I have heard is that in certain situations, it is hard for planets to form. Like if there's a lot of stars that form really close to each other, there's just all these gravitational dynamics that shoot stuff off into space. But isn't that wild? But there's no way to confirm that because the ways that we have for confirming the existence of exoplanets are not like great. They rely on like things being pretty perfect, either the system being aligned perfectly so that the planets actually block out the sun, or that the planets are big enough to wobble the star a little bit, etc. And so if there's like a far out small planet, there's just no way for us to know that. So we have never confirmed a star that doesn't have a planet. Whereas when I was a child, we had never confirmed a star that did have a planet. That's what it's like getting older, you guys. Exoplanets are so normal now, but like you couldn't even say that they definitely existed. People would get mad at you. They'd be like, we don't know for sure. And when I say they get mad at you, I mean, I was 12, so probably no one was getting mad at me about that. I was probably leaving YouTube comments being like, how do you know anything? You don't know what? I wasn't. YouTube didn't exist. Look, we're doing what we're doing. I'm imagining that I would have been a bit of a precocious little butt. I know that I was a bit of a precocious little butt, and I hope I'm better now. But I might indeed still be a bit of a precocious big butt. Thanks for watching the video. There's a link to this shirt right below the video, and you should get it because we're about to do the print run. And then what?